The United States of America is the most powerful nation on earth.
Five nonfiction books that you can read in a day. If you want to understand how incredibly necessary and possible the prison abolition movement is, read Are Prisons Obsolete by Angela Davis. If you want to understand how sports are a business and how capitalism is drastically changing the landscape, read Rethinking Fandom by Craig Calcaterra. If you want to read one of the most beautiful memoirs, but that's also a history of taxonomy, read Why Fish Don't Exist by Lulu Miller. If you have an undying nostalgia for Creed, shopping malls, Guy Fieri, or Jersey Shore, read Tacky by Rax King. And if you want to learn about death practices in other cultures, but also have just a really fun time talking about death, read From Here to Eternity by Caitlin Dowdy.
Not all fat people eat burgers. I posted a video where I ate like Lizzo for 24 hours. And if you didn't know, Lizzo is vegan. But y'all, I never expected the comment section to be this bad. Lizzo is definitely not vegan. How is she so fat then? Something is fishy here. And the most annoying is that she is lying about what she's eating. First, I would like to start by saying fat people can be vegan too. Just because someone chooses not to eat meat does not mean that they're automatically skinny. Secondly, I would like to say that who told you guys that vegan food was healthy? You do realize that French fries are vegan. Oreos are vegan. No, those foods aren't bad, but they're not the healthiest and they're still vegan. And lastly, you have no idea what is going on behind the screen for someone. Someone can be struggling with medical conditions, eating disorders, and for all we know, she could be losing weight, but that's not our business. We have no right to comment on her body. So I am a fat person who is not vegan eating a burger. And Lizzo will probably stick to the veggie burgers because...
And you don't seem to understand.
Come on, Captain, this is an obvious suicide. Wait, I want to let Detective Rogers look at it first. Detective Rogers, what's even his fucking deal? He's got depression, can see things other people can't. Come on, Rogers, get up. Rogers, what do you have to say about this? Depression senses. Tingles every time he gets a clue. I don't think he killed himself. According to this right here, he was in the middle of watching season 1, episode 4 of The Wire, and no one would stop right there. Brilliant. That depression of yours is like an uncanny sixth sense.
You know that schizophrenia, delusions, and hallucinations are different depending on cultural context? According to one study, U.S. subjects are more likely to report their experiences as violent and hateful, whereas Indian and African subjects were more likely to say that their hallucinations reminded them of friends or family, and that their voices were playful or even entertaining. This could be because Americans desire individuality and independence, and the voices were seen as an intrusion into their self, whereas Eastern and African cultures tend to be more collectivist, and the hallucinations were more likely to be seen as just another person in their social network. Another study saw that Germans and Austrians who have a higher prevalence of Christianity were more likely to experience delusions centered around religious topics of guilt and sin, whereas Japanese patients were more likely to experience delusions related to persecution by others, such as slandering by coworkers.
I'm about to give a very blunt demonstration. This is in response to all the whining comments saying, but Ezra, women and non-men need spaces away from dirty cis men where they can talk about their problems, their commonalities. Okay, so here's our non-man number 1. She's a cis woman and her name is Rebecca. She's a TERF. Here's non-man number 2. This is Stacy. She's not a TERF. She's just very, very sheltered. And here's non-man number 3. This is Levi. They're non-binary and they're super duper open-minded. When Levi rocks up to the non-man function, 1, how many of those Stacys and Rebeccas would feel uncomfortable with Levi's presence? 2, what would Levi have in common with Stacy and Rebecca? Are they all united in their non-manhood? Not at all. Rebecca's turfing out. Stacy's asking to touch Levi's hair. It's a mess. That's the non-man function. The hyperbolic non-man function. For everyone saying non-man spaces are a great thing, be quiet.
People get absolutely mortified if their child points at somebody in public and is like, that's a fat person. And as somebody who studies child development and body image, I can say that probably the best thing you can do for like your own child's body image and to just be a better person is, instead of shutting them down and being like, no, you can't say something like that, just say like, hey, like, yeah, that's a fat person. There's people who come in all different shapes and sizes, but also like, let's not comment about people's bodies in public. Or if you don't want to say the first part, just say, oh, let's not talk about people's bodies in public. But it is important to affirm later, like, yeah, some people are fat. That's okay. It's okay if some people are fat. Instead, when we try to use euphemisms or use this like, no, nobody's fat, people have fat, all you're doing is further stigmatizing being fat.
You know how in Western society, right, it's considered a bit psychotic to like talk to animals, to talk to trees, to even believe that you can communicate with animals is considered psychotic, right? It's such a huge paradox that I'm working through as a Nilot living in the 21st century in this whatever world, because like the whole basis of my spirituality is that we need animals to survive on this earth, and that animals can talk to people, and if animals don't talk to you, it's because they don't feel safe around you. Like, the last time someone communicated with my totem, which was the black snake ancestor called Alerjok, was in the 90s. Anyone in my family, the last time that they communicated with Alerjok was in the 90s. No one has communicated with them anymore because Christianity has come to convince us that now that all of that is just satanic, it's demonic, it's backwards, whatever, But I've been on this journey for a while, basically my whole life, but I've been consciously on this spiritual journey for a while now, and the way that my grandmother's spirit communicates with me is through birds. I figured this out, and it took me a while to figure it out, because sometimes I would have visions, sometimes I would have voices, but the way that I would always be able to symbolize what she was saying is through birds. And honestly, I can ask her anytime. I can say, "Kok, show me a black bird today," and she'll show me a black bird, and they always come in numbers like 3, 5, 7, 9, 13. That is the numbers that she always communicates with me with. And I've been trying to talk more to people in my family about Aler and our totem, and no one wants to talk about it because everyone thinks it's satanic, it's backwards, Like, one of the people that was like a keeper of the shrine of Aler is still alive till this day. That was my grandmother's best friend, right? She's still alive, and she will not talk about it because since she converted, like, she was told, don't talk to anyone about this is demonic. But that shit is still in our DNA. And it really makes me so angry that, like, we as Nilots, we as South Sudanese people, we're convinced to feel like we shouldn't believe in that. Like, we're literally gaslit to feel like that shit is not real, when it's literally in your DNA. That power is in your DNA. You can communicate with animals. You can communicate with trees. All human beings can, but it's like, it's so close in your lineage. It's not that far. It's not that long ago. You know what I'm saying? And like, I feel like once you really like open up that spectrum, you start to see the world a lot more different. You start to experience healing so much more different because you know yourself now. You're like, fuck, like, I'm not being gaslit anymore. I actually know myself. I know that the birds are here to protect me. I know that the trees are here to protect me. I know that the rain is always a symbol in my life of protection, That's how it's always been. Yeah, I'll make a part 2.
White women, we need to talk again. Hold on.
We are strong. We are warriors. No amount of pretending, ridiculous acting, or surgery can ever make you a woman. You will never experience what we have. Stop trying to be us. Stop pretending to be us. Stop trying to erase us. Stop appropriating us. Woman face is offensive, and we are not going away.
Y'all are so weird. So motherfucking weird. First of all, you talk about being strong, talking about being a warrior. Imagine living your life in your truth and having to constantly battle for the right to exist. That's what transgender men and women have to go through every day in this country because of people like you. You talk about woman face. You mean black face? What we quite literally see people who look like you do on this app almost every day, making a mockery of Black women specifically and Black culture. You talk about costumes. You mean how you put on those Pocahontas costumes or use that Apache runner filter on this app and think it's funny, or put on war bonnets. It's just a costume. It's just a hairstyle. It's just a word until it applies to you. Then we should all sit down and listen. Except no one's trying to erase you. No one wants assigned females at birth to go away. I would like bigots to go away, however. Stop appropriating words that have actual meaning and using them to fit a twisted narrative to try and strip transgender people of their rights. It's weird. It's gross. And you look absolutely ridiculous.
Have a seat, please.
You're gonna tase me outside of my residence? I hope that
Drop that. Put that down.
I hope the camera's on, sir. I don't
Subject's
know
failing
you.
to comply,
You're actually
not
on my
sitting down,
property,
and he
I
has
feel
some
unsafe.
kind of a blunt object in his hand.
By describing the trash grabber as a blunt object, Officer Smiley is implying that Mr. Atkinson is weaponizing the grabber, given the ambiguous nature of the radio chatter and the context of his earlier calls for backup. The responding officers could easily assume that they are entering into a dangerous or violent situation, but Mr. Atkinson has shown no signs of aggression toward the officer, and the blunt object in Mr. Atkinson's hand is hardly a threat to anyone's safety.
Sit down.
I'm not sitting anywhere.
Sit down. Now.
Why?
Now. Do it now.
Why? Why?
I'm detaining you to investigate.
What? For
Investigated
what?
trespass.
I live here.
You haven't confirmed that. Sit down.
I'm a student.
Sit down and I'll confirm
I'm not
it.
sitting anywhere.
Sit down now.
No.
Have a seat,
Why would you
please.
think that you could tase me? I'm freaking picking up trash on my property.
I need to confirm it.
Which is where I live.
There's a sign.
I'm not doing anything illegal, and you're not gonna fucking tase me, officer. Your hand is on your weapon, and you're gonna shoot me. I'm picking up trash.
Put it down. I told you many times to put it down.
And you're holding a gun. How do you feel?
Put it down,
How do
sir.
you feel, officer?
If you use that weapon against me,
A weapon.
then yes, that is a
I'm 20 feet
consideration.
from you. I'm minding my
All you have to do is comply right now. All I want to do is figure this out with you.
Camera on this guy. You got a camera, exactly. That's my boy Zinio right there.
Hey,
This is
Fern,
my
we're
residence.
just to the east of
You're on my
Backcountry,
property with a gun in your hand. You're not gonna get away with murder. You're not today. I don't have a weapon.
That's a weapon.
This is a bucket.
No, that's a weapon. Right
This
there.
is a clipper for picking up garbage, sir. You have a gun that kills people. How am I supposed to kill someone with
Sit down, sir.
Officer, he's got a gun.
Sit down.
Gun.
The first responding officer arrives on the scene and immediately draws his taser. Over the course of the next 10 minutes, a total of 9 officers arrive. The independent report notes that one reason so many officers responded was because Officer Smiley told dispatch that, quote, the citizen was still not complying and had a blunt object in his hand.
We're not going anywhere. You need to drop it. I haven't confirmed that yet. I told you I'm investigating a trespass. You didn't give me your address.
2333, I live in room 304.
That's the first time. Have a seat. Hey, listen. The first thing you need to do is drop that item.
I'm picking up garbage from my door. Don't tell me what to do. You guys don't have a right to be doing this to me.
Sit down.
I'm a
and drop
citizen
it.
of this country.
Sit
I
down.
pay my taxes.
Sit down and drop that object.
I will not sit down. I refuse to sit down until you guys put your weapons away.
The city of Portland did a point-in-time count, which found that our city has around 5,000 houseless people, and I would say that that is a conservative estimate. Of those 5,000 houseless people, 25% identify as someone with a disability. And our city only has 1,500 shelter beds, many of which are not accessible to someone with a disability. Mayor Wheeler's solution to this isn't to look into the inadequate and infrequent facilities. It isn't to look at housing first policies. It is to ban tents from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. on a daily basis. I'm guessing as a multimillionaire and timber baron, Mayor Wheeler doesn't know how difficult it is to collect supplies to build a shelter, let alone how difficult it is to find a place to camp where people aren't going to bother you every hour of the day. I'm guessing he hasn't thought about the physically disabled or elderly houseless folks who have a difficult time moving their things from day to day. I'm guessing he hasn't thought about the extreme temperatures in Portland, where we had 114 degrees one summer and then this past winter a snowstorm, and so many bus lines were down that houseless people couldn't even get to the available shelter beds. Not that there were enough for everyone should they get there. We have had houseless people die in both the extreme heat and in the extreme winters that are now a common occurrence in Oregon. When you create a policy that will make it difficult or impossible for people to create their own shelter, when you have failed to provide adequate shelter, and there is extreme temperatures on either side, you are passing a genocidal policy. People are going to die because of policies like this, but I hope that the mayor's business friends who offer him weekends at the vineyard are happy with his proposals.
Asians colonized each other plenty without white people, as you know. I do know. Let's talk about it. Happy Asian Pacific American Heritage Month. My name is Soleil. I'm here to provide you with 31 days of Asian American political education. As I say in my daily videos, the scope of what I'm doing here is providing Asian American political education. So when I bring up European colonization in North America or US American imperialism and their effects on Asian Americans, and you bring up the history of how Asians have colonized each other, it shows your lack of understanding that these are two separate histories. And what I'm doing here is talking about Asian American history. Secondly, and very importantly, colonization and enslavement both happened throughout history in so many different places. But the way that white Europeans did it in the land that we now know as the Americas is a fundamental departure from a lot of these historical examples. When white Europeans invaded North America, they systematically committed land theft and the displacement of indigenous peoples, and on top of that foundation, they built a nation that continues the oppression of indigenous peoples. And the European settlers brought with them enslaved Africans. And when the three different groups encountered on this land, the indigenous people, the settlers, and the enslaved Africans, the people with access to power, the white Europeans, invented a social political system and category of race that started to racialize people into the powered hierarchy that we now know today. And this entire history coincided with the rise of capitalism in Europe. So the system of racial capitalism became really, really grounded when it started to be developed in the Americas following the invasion of Europeans. So European colonization of the Americas combined with the system of racial capitalism is what enables the exploitation of racialized labor, including Asian American labor.
What I eat in a day for someone who's recovering from bulimia, and this is part 51. If you watched my last What I Eat in a Day video, you know I relapsed, but I'm no longer thinking about it. Something I really haven't talked about is having like weird eating disorder habits or rules, and very particular ones too. I remember that I would always want to eat with small utensils and small plates. Something about it just feeds into the eating disorder. Even timing my meals were like crucial to me. Thinking about it now, it's crazy to me, like all that energy is wasted onto something like that. But I think the biggest challenge is not projecting my eating disorder thoughts to the people around me. And what I mean is, you know, maybe my boyfriend would have a smaller meal or eat less than me or skip a breakfast. That used to trigger me so hard, and sometimes it still does, but I really have to learn that his way of eating is so different than mine, and mine has been disordered for so long that I kind of have to rewire it to be able to eat normally again. I mean, that's something that I'm constantly working on, but yeah, I had Menchie's to end off the day and finished all of it, and it was so good.
Captain speaking. Who's ready to see the Titanic? Ready. That's good. That's good. All right, let me just get my controller out of my pocket. There it is. Yep. Whoa, you got games on here? What? I got Next on the stick. Yeah, no. This is how I pilot the submarine. Yeah. But I play Mario Kart, so don't even worry. And I'm also Diamond 1 on Rainbow Six, so I'm not too shabby. Let's start this thing up. Let's start it up. Shit, hold on, my batteries fell out. Let me get them back in there real quick. Damn, this kind of got some stick drift. This is a little different than the simulations, ain't it? Shit, damn, shit. This shit kind of, this shit kind of rough. Hold on, everybody.
I am really fascinated by the archetype of a child and how that gets weaponized to silence us from our needs and our emotions. So people will say, oh, I know it's really like childish, but I feel kind of hurt that interesting, almost as though like the state and capitalism and colonialism and all of these forces have shaped the archetype of a child such that you do not feel like you deserve to have emotional needs. And the irony is that even children within the society are silenced, are demonized, are abused, and are oppressed. So it's not a safe child to be a child. It's not a safe place to be a child. And then when you grow out of being a child, it's not a safe space to have childlike needs. You know what I mean? Almost as though the society is set up to completely not be in touch with the ability to meet people's emotional needs as people. You don't grow out of the need to be cared for. You don't grow out of the need to be loved and to be reassured and to be held and to be made to feel safe. These are not needs that you someday will no longer have. When you are 80, when you are 90, when you are 75, however old you are, you need to be cared for. You need to be adored. You need to receive affection. You do not grow out of having emotional needs. Why? You are literally a social being, hardwired for love and for connection. And you need caretaking. And you will never not need caretaking. And the archetype of the child is a way that the society shames you out of being able to name your needs. When you are a child, if you name what you need, what do? You get silenced. You get told to behave. You get punished. And then when you're not a child, what do you get told? Oh, but you're not a child. Oh, isn't that interesting? Oh, okay. Oh, they have shaped the entire arc of a life such that at no point do you feel like you are owed care and affection and attention. When you're a child, you can't speak to the fact that you need more attention, okay? You get ridiculed, you get bullied, you get all of these things. Then you grow up, you can't say, I wish you gave me more attention. Are you 5 years old? Actually, yes. I am the age that I present to you as. Age is a social construct. Age is a colonial construct. We don't age out of needs. We don't have certain ages where we need, no. That only exists within the confines of the colonial imagination. This is the age you get married. This is the age you have a child. This is the age this happens. All of that is not true. It's not rooted in a reality. It's rooted in the state needing to reproduce itself and reproduce the labor force and knowing that they need to do that at the time where people with wombs are most fertile, okay? So do with that what you will. You don't age out of your needs. You're precious. You're wonderful. If you need to be held, that's what you need, okay? Love you so much. Goodbye.
For this problematic Monday, we're going to explain why it's problematic to insult a black woman, then tell her she isn't educated enough to realize it was actually a compliment. At this year's Easter Day parade in New York City, I was looking amazing and I felt amazing. As I was walking to meet up with my friends, a man asked me if he could take my picture. I agreed. After taking my picture, he came very close. I would say too close. He said, some would think this is a bad thing, but do you know who you look like? You look just like Aunt Jemima. My friend Darlene arrived just in time to keep me from catching the case. He then proceeded to explain the reason why I was upset was that I didn't know my history and that it was actually a good thing to be compared to Aunt Jemima. Let me make this crystal clear. I'm not afraid or ashamed to be compared to the ancestors. It would be the greatest honor for people to say I look like the ancestors and I carry myself like them. But the Mammy Minstrel Show character is not my ancestor. Aunt Jemima is not my ancestor because they aren't real people. They are fictional characters created to mock and oppress my real ancestors. If you say I resemble Hattie McDaniels or Nancy Green or Mary Fields or Elizabeth Freeman, I would take that as a great compliment because these were actual black women who existed, who fought tooth and nail to be seen as human beings deserving of respect and care.
The trailer for the Duggar documentary just dropped, and here's why you should watch it, even if you never watched the show, especially if you're in the USA. You might know the Duggars from their TLC reality show 19 Kids and Counting, which at one point was 18 Kids and Counting and 17 Kids and Counting. It all started as a 2-part series, 14 Kids and Counting. The show positions them as this very wholesome, family values-based group of modest weirdos who don't kiss till their wedding day, but they just love the Lord and each other. Here's what you might not know. The Duggars are a part of an extremist right-wing conservative Christian group called the IBLP, the Institute for Basic Life Principles, founded by cult leader and sexual predator Bill Gothard. This is what the documentary is going to deep dive into. What matters for us as we look at this through the lens of the age of the personal brand is knowing that the IBLP's goal was to mainstream their extremist beliefs, to get more widespread adoption and or at least tolerance for their extremist beliefs so that they could arrest more and more political control. And one of the main ways that they did this was by getting some of their most prominent families in the media to soften America's perception of them and to position them as wholesome family values people instead of folks essentially who want us to live in the Handmaid's Tale. Speaking of politics, you can actually see that this photo was either taken while Jim Bob Duggar was on the campaign trail or actively serving in the Arkansas House of Representatives. So this approach by the IBLP was working for a while. Jim Bob Duggar had a political career. Josh Duggar had a political career. Jed Duggar tried to have a political career. Thus far has failed. But the IBLP was starting to succeed. The IBLP wasn't just successful at getting its leaders into political office. They were successful in getting their ideas into the politics and the public life of pretty much every state in the country by creating a secular version of their training materials and having them be adopted by public schools, government buildings, police forces. It goes on and on. It's called the Character Training Institute, and their materials are still in use today all across the USA and governments across the world. So in a nutshell, Jim Bob and Michelle Duggar and each of their 19 brands and counting were tasked by the IBLP with softening America's views on their extreme religious beliefs so that they could get more political control to enforce those religious beliefs on the rest of America. And I think it's notable that the word propaganda, if you remember, literally originated in the church, and it means to propagate the faith, which is exactly what the Duggars set out to do.
Always pouring stuff. Elon Musk is about to start drilling holes into the skulls of disabled people. Elon Musk's company Neuralink, which makes chips to be installed inside people's skulls so they can control computers with their minds, just got approval by the FDA for human trials. I hope it goes better than Musk's other companies like Twitter, which has lost half of its value since Elon Musk took over. Or SpaceX, which promised to have us on Mars by 2018 but just had to blow up its first test flight of the Mars rocket. Or Tesla, which builds cars that constantly catch on fire and are run by software that causes them to crash into people all the time. Or his tunnel digging company that seeks to reduce traffic and has never done so and is now ignoring governments it promised to do projects for. Or Neuralink already, which is being investigated for animal cruelty, including the deaths of monkeys who had Neuralink chips installed. But besides all that, there's no reason to not let Elon Musk put computer chips into people's brains, and I'm hoping he's one of the first people to sign up for the trial. Yummy.